should expect now to see Muschamp punching that whiteboard in the open, but it gets me every time. So thank you, Matthew, for putting that together when you did. Welcome back to On Texas Football. Welcome to the Wednesday night live stream. I am Jeff Howe, joined. I got a little lineup change on our Wednesday crew. I'm joined tonight by, as always on Wednesdays, 2005 national champion, lifetime Longhorn Marcus Myers, and replacing CJ Vogel, who is out and about tonight, Hank South. Hank is recruiting extraordinary. Hank, what is your title over on the website? Are we managing editor? I don't know. I've never
been managing editor.
There we go. All right. So the managing editor. Yeah. The managing editor on TexasFootball.com. Hank South. Get your questions in if you got them. Super chats, as always, jump to the front of the line. We'll you guys control the show, guys and gals control the show. So whatever you want to talk about, we'll talk about it. This edition of On Texas Football is brought to you by Prize Picks. We'll shout out some more of our sponsors here later in the show. We are 10 days away from kickoff, which is appropriate because, guys, when we do number countdowns, there's some other guys you can go to, but it starts and ends with Vincent Paul Young Jr. So I actually just watched probably the first half of the VY doc today. I was having some internet issues at the house, so finally got Netflix to cooperate. So I'm right at the point where he's drafted by the Titans, and I think we all know where it goes from there. Hank, I want to get your thoughts on the VY doc. And again, like I don't need to watch the doc to know how it ends. Like we all know how it plays out. But Hank, just your thoughts on the documentary.
Yeah, I thought it was really well done. I don't feel like I learned anything that new. I mean, like you said, we kind of know the story and how everything went down. It felt crazy because obviously you're so tuned into football. I really don't even remember much of his time with the Titans. As a rookie of the year in 2006, he made the Pro Bowl in 2009. Obviously, I remember him playing, but it feels like your lasting memory, or him jumping around on the Packers, Eagles, or even the Browns. I didn't realize the Browns had him at one point on their team. But I thought it was really well done. It was kind of from high school to his pro career where he is now. It seems like he's really kind of, made it all past that, and he's in a good place now with his kids and everything they're doing. He talked about, just wanting to be there for his son. Is obviously a big part of the documentary is his dad wasn't in his life, or really in his life, and that had a huge effect on him, whether the coaching he was getting from Mac Brown or Jeff Fisher, who was heavily. He's taken some L's on Twitter today with the way he was, portrayed in the documentary and the things he said, which I think, again, we all kind of had feelings about Jeff Fisher, I think. But I thought it was really well done. I enjoyed it. I kind of watched it in three different. I was laying down a baby and I was watching it for 30 minutes. I fell asleep, baby woke up, watched it for 30 more minutes. So I need to go back and watch it just in one sitting, but I enjoyed it. It was really well done.
Marcus, you were, at least up until the point VY left the 40 acres and declared for the draft, you were there front and center for all of it. I'm sure you didn't learn anything, Marcus, but you fired off the tweet that I think a lot of Longhorn fans agreed with. Jeff Fisher doesn't come off, and just from the clips I've seen, again, I haven't finished watching the entire thing. Jeff Fisher doesn't come off well at all in this thing.
Yeah, man, I don't know if you've seen how much you've seen of some of these clips, Jeff, but there'll be one at the end that you'll know kind of is the one that drew everyone's ire, right? Mine included. And I mean, to your point, and similar to Hank's, there wasn't a ton that I would say was truly any aha moments, but I was glad to see, V get to kind of tell his side of things, and certainly him take the opportunity to take some accountability, right? And again, as it ends and you see kind of how that final one unfolds, we certainly can talk about it more. I don't want to spoil it for everyone, but yeah, as he Matthew was putting up here, I guess I certainly took issue with, the way that he's chosen to carry it still to this day, right? This is something that was, filmed here pretty recently within the last year and a half, in VY's own words and what he's kind of shared on social media and some stuff. And, I just felt like there was an opportunity for, Fisher to potentially take it a different direction. And he showed, a bit more of his character or lack thereof and how he approached it, from my opinion. So, but I thought it was cool, to kind of relive. I spotted myself in, a couple of the scenes. And so that was kind of, funny to see, but it was back to a time when I had a hairline, Jeff. So
I think we all did at that point, Mark.
Yeah. So it was cool though. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really well done. I know they kind of did a premiere event the night before in Houston, and so it was cool to see photos from a number of people that were able to get to attend that. But no love for Jeff Fisher over here in the Myers household.
No, and it's I think the sad thing in the whole deal, and again, to your point, Marcus, like and Hank, I think you brought this up, like to VY taking accountability for some of the stuff he could have done different. It's nice to see him do that. But Hank, it's just interesting to think about. You go back to the draft, and it's been well documented. Again, I'm only halfway through, so I don't know if the doc how much it addresses it, but Jeff Fisher never wanted Vince Young. He wanted Jay Cutler, or depending on what day you ask him, he wanted Matt Leinart. Norm Chow for sure wanted Matt Leinart. Brings up an interesting point, Hank. In all the, whether it's Jeff Fisher's side or Vince Young's side, Bud Adams gets off pretty scot-free for being an owner who basically gave the middle finger to his head coach and his OC and be like, I don't care if you want this guy, I'm taking him anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, that was I guess that was one thing I learned, how adamant he was about drafting Vince, almost just to spite, I guess, the Houston mayor's wife for wanting him to be drafted to Houston, which I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, you didn't, and all the Vince Young, Jeff Fisher discourse, you never hear about anybody else like Bud Adams, who spearheaded this whole thing for the most part. But yeah, it was fascinating to kind of see that dynamic, and for just to kind of keep piling on Jeff Fisher while I have the soapbox.
Please do.
Yeah, like 15. What grown man? I mean, this is 15 years ago, and you're still sitting here with sour grapes about And I don't know how much spoiler alert you want, Jeff, but
I don't think I need one at this point. But
he's at the very end. He talks about how Vince talks about how he sent Jeff Fisher a letter apologizing to him, just kind of trying to make amends and be on a good note. And Jeff Fisher didn't write him back because he spelled his name wrong. And that's what he says in the documentary. And it's like, you're sitting here right now and you're still torn up about that. It's pretty pathetic.
Yeah.
Well, Hank, and he goes as far. I mean, we're here now, Jeff. So sorry, but I mean, he goes as far to say, Jeff. He goes as far to say, because he spelled my name wrong, I wasn't sure it really came from him.
I don't believe that for 2 seconds.
Like, what are we doing here?
If he did, what does it matter?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, his choice, I guess I mean, clearly he doesn't care how he comes off, nor does he care, how he's perceived or, really to do anything differently. I think he says that too. He would change absolutely nothing about, how he handled any of it. So it is what it is. On we move, says more about him than anything, in my opinion.
I'll say this though, Marcus, we, back in my former place of employment, this was back in 2015. So Chris Hummer and I did a 10-part series retrospective on the national championship. And it just so happened that obviously you have to talk to Vince Young for one of those things. And it was a football camp, and I got 10 minutes with Vince and talking to him then. And I can't remember if this was right before or right after he went to Canada and blew his hamstring out, and that was officially the end. But I remember talking to VY at that point, Marcus. So this was 11 years ago, and thinking he's not at peace. Like, it didn't end on his own terms, his football career. He's not at peace with it. And that was my hope for him at that point. I'm like, I hope that at some point he can find peace. And that's still my hope for Vince Young at this point, is that he can find peace and just, however he needs to rectify it, that he just kind of comes to peace with what happened. But regardless, and this is the story I ended up writing, no matter how the NFL career played out, whatever happened, you will never, we're sitting here talking about more than 20 years later, you'll never be able to take away January 4th, 2006 as maybe the greatest single individual championship game performance any of us have ever seen on a football field.
Yeah, man. It's it's one of those deals where, like, from time to time, I'll rewatch it. I think I first rewatched it in its entirety straight through during COVID. When there was like that night that ABC was airing it or something. And I've had a chance to see bits and pieces of it since then. I don't think I've watched it fully straight through, and so I appreciate it the more and more I get removed from it. But one of the cool things about it, in similar fashion to the way this Jeff Fisher thing has played out, right? Like, it's almost kind of universally agreed upon that like, that game was one of those type of games, if not the, by most, including our rival fan bases and the ones that typically will take any and every opportunity to dunk on Texas if they can. So it's certainly something that I appreciate, and it was cool to be part of, and thankful that he was on our sideline that day.
Yeah, Hank, the game is timeless. It's still a good watch, and I'm not gonna lie, even watching the doc, like, whether I'm watching that or the clip, or if the game's on and I'm watching it, I still get a little nervous on 4th and 5. Like, is BY gonna trip before he gets to goal line? Is he somebody's Frosty record gonna reach out and like get a foot? But no, VY crosses the goal line every time, Hank. He still crosses.
I know, it's one of the. I mean, I don't know how many times I've watched it, and like Marcus, I remember during that COVID, I feel like it was like. It almost felt like it was on that night just because we had no sports on during the pandemic, and we could all. I felt like the whole country was collectively watching this replay of the Rose Bowl. But yeah, every time you watch the game, like you see the highlights, I always just sit down and watch it. Like, who knows how many times we've seen them at this point, 4th and 5 or 4th and 10. Like, I mean, you always feel a little tense, like you just noted, Jeff. It's always fun to see. And like, I'm not gonna lie, got some chills watching the documentary last night. Like, hearing the background, hearing Mac's speech, and obviously Marcus, like after the game, like, don't let this be the most important moment of your life. Like, let this be the most important sports moment of your life. It's just like all the emotions, really. It was a special time. I've said this before, but like, I was in ninth grade when that game happened. And I'm like, I've always thankful that I saw Texas win a national championship in like very formative time of my life, like formative as a fan, like highest of my fandom, peak fandom. So I'm always thankful for that, and it's always fun to look back on.
I'll just say this real quick, and I know we got to turn the page because we got current stuff to talk, right? But what's funny, I was on this, Marcus. I was smiling though while y'all were talking, because I think they even say it, in the special. It's always interesting for me to hear other people's perspectives on it, because I haven't come across a teammate yet that had those feelings that the fan base had, right? Like, we all knew if we got the ball back, we were going to win the game. Like, there was no down to 4th and 5. Like, there wasn't a moment, I think, where any of us really felt we were in any jeopardy. It was just like, man, we just got to get within striking distance. And if we get the ball back, it's a wrap. So I always kind of enjoy hearing what it was like outside of, I guess, our little bubble.
Yeah, I remember being at a watch party that night, and when Dwayne Jarrett scores that touchdown, and it's 41, whatever, 38-23 or whatever it is at that point. There were some A&M fans there who started talking trash, and my blood pressure was hiked up at that point, so there had to be somebody had to play separator. Vince didn't even cross the goal line yet, and those two guys had gotten up and walked out of the house. Like,
oh yeah, they were gone.
They were gone, and shortly thereafter, I was gone, headed downtown. So great night. Hank, you mentioned something there that it's the only way I'll ever make this comparison. The Texas USC Rose Bowl, it's a lot like the Shawshank Redemption. If it's on, I'm going to watch it. Doesn't matter what else is going on. If I see it on the TV, I'm going to stop and watch it. So, at any rate, yes, if you got questions about what's happening in 2026, we'll take those. Super Chats, as always, jump to the front of the line. But anyway, right now I need to thank one of our lead sponsor here on the Wednesday night live stream. I'll let you know that this edition of On Texas Football is brought to you by Prize Picks. Y'all know we're always looking for ways to make watching the games a little more fun. And that's why we love Prize Picks. It is America's #1 sports picks app, and it's about as simple as it gets, because for player picks, all you got to do is pick more or less on a few stats, lock in your lineup, and you're good to go. If you like picking teams instead of individual players, Prize Picks has you covered there too, because now you can pick the winner, the spread, or the total on games or fights. Prize Picks is available in most states, including Texas, California, and Florida. So chances are, wherever you are, you can jump in today. And one of our favorite features is that you can follow users on Prize Picks. If you like the picks they're making, you can tell them with one click. You can follow your friends' picks too. But here's the best part about Prize Picks. If you've never tried Prize Picks, play your first $5 lineup. And if you win, you'll get $150 in bonus lineups. Just make sure you use the code HMA when you sign up. They just updated this offer, so there's never been a better time to get started with Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app, use the code HMA, play that first $5 lineup. And if you win, you'll get $150 in bonus lineups. Again, just remember the code HMA when you download the Prize Picks app. And as always, please remember to play smart, play responsibly, play Prize Picks. All right, I do want to mention this quickly because it's come up in the chat a little bit, and Hank sent this to the On Texas Football staff group text earlier today. David Pollock, who 99 times out of 100, I think has pretty good sound football takes. This is the one where I think he could not be more wrong or off. Hank, it's just it's and this is why I would encourage Texas fans to stick with outlets like OTF when we're talking about the Longhorns, because we actually have a really good idea of what's going on within the program, and we'll tell you as such. When you get the talking heads, Hank, and I get it, everybody's looking for views and you got to drive traffic. That's part of the game. But it was surprising even to me, given all that you're trying to sell Ty Anthony Smith's dismissal and a parent getting on social media to complain about something, like you're selling that as, is there turmoil in Austin as things are off to a shaky start? I don't know. It seemed like a really, really big reach to me.
Yeah. And, and for those that didn't see it, David Pollock posted a video saying I need to find the exact wording. Something is seriously wrong at Texas is the video caption, and
red flags
and red flags, and talks about obviously Ty Anthony Smith's dismissal, and throughout it all, it's got this ominous music playing in the background. I don't know, can we play it, or is it just?
Nah, we don't need to play it.
Yeah, we don't got to play it. But yeah, you get the gist. You get the gist. It's some ominous music going. Talks about Ty Anthony Smith. Brings up the parent tweet from over the weekend. Saying all caps or just upset about something. But my take is, obviously Ty Anthony Smith getting dismissed. Nobody wants that. That hits your depth. It's not good. You feel for the kid. You feel for the whole situation. But would the red flag not be if he was detrimental to the team or to the locker room, that Steve Sarkisian didn't dismiss him from the team? Like, if you kept him on the team, isn't that more of a red flag? Like, in my opinion. And then the whole tweet from the parents, like, are you even a football team if you don't have upset parents? Like this is what coaches deal with all the time is parents that aren't happy with something, whether it's playing time or their kid sits on the depth chart. Like, there's always going to be an upset parent. I don't think that means Texas has major problems. I thought it was a weird take because, like you, Jeff, David Pollock generally has very sound, I don't know, logical opinions. This wasn't one of them. I didn't agree with it.
No, and actually, producer Matt says we can play this. So Matt, go ahead and play it, and we'll just dissect this. Marcus, I know you're chomping at the bit to get in on this, but let's.
I'm good.
We'll hear David Pollock's take here on Texas.
Where there's smoke, there's fire. There's a lot of smoke in Austin. That's not good, man. This is not how you want to start your season. Ty Anthony Smith was dismissed last week from the team. Big-time contributor. Conduct detrimental to the team is what Sark said, but he's a really good player. You talk about depth. It's unfortunate right now at this point in the season. But then you also have guys that are freshmen, their parents going on social media and blasting Texas and saying, I'm going to unveil what the heck's going on. Like, not real excited. Arch is a little bit rusty from missing spring and a little bit off, and the offense hasn't been dialed in. Not a good start. But I have a little bit of anxiousness in Austin. Just would. Where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah. Again, that's what I would encourage Texas fans. Stick with OTF. We won't steer you wrong. And again, Marcus, like, I get it, but it doesn't mean I have to agree with it or like it.
Yeah, I was a little active on the old Twitter machine. I don't call it X. I just can't. Today, I guess, and so I saw that, and I actually had to disagree with a teammate of mine. Old Chance said that he had made some points, Chance Mock, and I kind of responded, and and I tried to do a quick little bit of homework, right? You can go to anybody's profile and just click the little search button and type a few keywords in and see what pops up, right? What have they said? I typed in, variations of arrested and speeding. And surprise, surprise, David Pollock, former Georgia player and alum, had no commentary about anything that's gone on in Georgia for the last couple of years. I think we're really just kind of getting closer to the season. It's clickbait season, and it very much is, we're the biggest brand in all of sports, whether, or in all of college football at least. And that draws clicks, right? And so that's what, people are doing. But furthermore, I was even kind of looking around like, all right, well, maybe what else is, popped to his radar. Surprisingly, he hasn't said anything about the Miami player that was dismissed just yesterday and is now suing Miami. But, he had all the commentary about how they might have the best offense in college football this year. So, I just always find it, kind of funny and certainly disingenuous. But, again, you mentioned it earlier, Jeff, it's kind of the name of the game. If there is something that you can say related to Texas, you're going to get a lot of eyeballs on it. I just hated the fact that, the way in which he portrayed it, to your point, I've not been on a team that a parent hasn't been upset about playing time. It's just more times than not, Twitter didn't exist, so you couldn't go there. But I hate how he makes it seem like it's multiple, players and parents. And yeah, sure, I'm sure there's some other people that, feel their kids should have more playing time. But when has that never been the case in the history of any sport?
Yeah. And hey, this is where it stuff like this bothers me. There are reasons that you can be skeptical about Texas going into the season without having to grasp at straws. Like, to your point, like Ty Anthony Smith was dismissed. Anybody that followed our coverage, he had kind of been in and out of camp through the whole time. So it was going to come to a head at some point. But I think this team had probably, at least in the linebacker room, and for Will Muschamp being over the defense, probably been preparing like you were going to go into the season without him long before the dismissal happened. Yeah. Like you said, Marcus, you said exactly what I was thinking. There have been parents of players that have complained for years, and probably parents of players that you wouldn't think that parent would complain. Yes. It's just like, oh, well, such and such freshman isn't happy. Tell me a freshman that's happy with everything that's going on, and I'll probably show you a guy that you probably don't want in the program because he's probably just satisfied to be there, right? Nobody's freshman year goes according to plan. Just like a lot of times, some parents are going to be upset. But there's a very small scope of those parents that are going to say something about on social media. Like, it just doesn't happen. I don't think you can paint that with a broad brush. So that's where I'm coming at this from, Hank. You can be skeptical of Texas without having to just grasp at straws and try to make something out of nothing.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I get it. You're trying to drive engagement and get people talking. I think David Pollock got exactly what he wanted out of this, or what his partnership, everything wanted out of this. That we're all talking about it. Everyone's like, hey, but like the ominous music in the background, something is seriously wrong in Texas. Just talk, hey, is linebacker depth an issue at Texas? I think every Texas fan would say, hey, yeah, that's an issue with Ty Anthony Smith leaving. I'm not really going to go deep into the tweet. I don't think that's really relevant. But if he wants to talk about Arch being rusty in fall camp, that's another discussion we can all have. We've all been having. But to come out and say something is seriously wrong in Texas, it's silly. But yeah, I was thinking when Marcus was talking about, there's always been upset parents. Just Twitter hasn't always been a thing. You almost think about like that version of it back in the day of, the dads lined up outside the fence of the high school football practice. Like,
yeah.
That was that version of Twitter, to give their opinions, at practice.
Yeah, the one that always gets me, Marcus, and it's gonna happen this year. It's gonna come from somebody's gonna hear, oh, such and such freshman. Yeah, I heard they're not real happy with the way things are going. Well, it's hard to find one over the years that, like I said, that hasn't been upset. Like most freshmen, you hear that something's not going right in some way, shape, or form. And part of that is just guys being in college for the first time. So again, just for me, much ado about nothing with all of this. So yeah, stick with OTF and you'll be fine knowing what's really happening on the 40 acres, because we're always talking about it either here on the channel or over at OnTexasFootball.com. All right, going to step away for just a second. Thank a couple more of our sponsors. Come back, get your questions lined up, super chats. As always, jump to the front of the line. We'll get to those in a minute. But right now, I need to shout out one of our newest sponsors here at On Texas Football. That is Shields. And Austin, Longhorn fans, you need to get ready because the all-new Shields is opening on August 29th in Cedar Park, and it's like nothing you've ever seen. Thousands and thousands of square feet packed with the best in sporting goods, hunting, fishing, camping, hiking, and all things sports. Try top brands, test out the latest gear, get expert help from people who love sports just as much as you do. Mark your calendar again, August 29th, Cedar Park, Shields grand opening. Your next adventure starts here, and they also have an exclusive Longhorn section with everything Shields has. Got that exclusive Longhorn section you can check out too. So again, mark your calendar, August 29th, Cedar Park. It is Shields grand opening. Thank you to Shields for sponsoring this edition of On Texas Football. And now let's get a word from our friends over at Advanced Pain Care.
Pros know the pain stops here.
Physical therapy helps me as an athlete then and now. And do I still need therapy? Yes. And Advanced Pain Care helps with that.
Injuries will stack up. They'll add up. You can't let those injuries get you down, and Advanced Pain Care has been very helpful for me.
We can help with whatever's got you down, from nerve damage to our spinal cord stimulator. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Same-day appointments available.
Advanced Pain Care. The pain stops here.
Let me go ahead and say it again, Marcus. It will never not be crazy to see gray-bearded VY on my screen in any way, shape, or form.
Hey man, it's not 2005 anymore. I think I can't remember who I was talking to. One of the fellas, it might have been DT before he came on to Coffee and Football. We were texting, and he was telling me how he was taking his son, or he was going to see his son scrimmage out at West Texas A&M later that night. And I was like, yeah, man, can you believe we were leaving campus, or we were leaving the program 20 years ago, right? Like. And what 24 years ago was when we stepped on campus. So it's pretty wild. Time flies, and yeah, a few grays pop up every now and then. I got a couple. They're hiding in this beard here.
Yeah, it's kind of like with the hair. I just learned a long time ago. Look, just stop fighting it. Just go bald, and it's worked out for me. As I said, I think I've paid for 2 haircuts since 2009, so it's worked out pretty well for me. All right, let's go ahead and get to some of your questions. Daniel wants to know, Hank, did your youngest enjoy the VY doc?
I don't know. He's almost 9 months old. He saw maybe like the lights and the flashing colors and everything, but he'll know eventually. I got my 6-year-old that we're training and getting caught up to date. So.
Antoine asks, which Texas recruit is everyone looking forward to seeing or hearing about play this week? I don't think I'm alone in this group. I can't wait to track Landon Williams-Callis on his way to whatever state records he's going to break or climb the list of. I remember doing it with Jonathan Gray back in, it would have been 2011. Gosh, I cannot believe that was 15 years ago. But yeah, I remember doing it with Jonathan Gray. It's gonna be fun again, guys, to do this with Landon Williams-Callis as he gets ready to ascend up the Texas high school football record books.
Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, and I'm trying to pull up Texas A&M's commitment list right now, but I'm going to the Westlake. So Westlake is hosting Inglewood out of California to open their season on Friday night. I'm going to go see them. Obviously, Jackson Cook's committed to Texas, but Inglewood has a Texas A&M defensive line commit. Last name Smith. I need to go double check their commitment list, but apparently he's a stud. So that'll be a good. It's kind of crazy. You have an A&M commit coming from the state of California to play in Austin. So I'll be watching that. I think they got some other D1 guys. Obviously, Westlake always has some talented players, but Jackson Cook, obviously going to see him. Noah Roberts plays on ESPN on Saturday night. So excited to watch that too.
Yeah, that's who I was going to go with, Noah Roberts.
Yeah, we forget Texas had a really good running back committed before Landon Williams-Callis. This is a really, really good 2-man running back class with Williams-Callis and with Noah Roberts. Hey, Hank, while I'm thinking about it, you're going to watch your alma mater play. Who's your all-time Westlake quarterback? Like, you got to have one game, fate of the world on the line. You taking Drew Brees, Nick Foles, Sam, or somebody else?
Okay, I've got to go with what I know. And obviously, you're not going to go wrong with many of those guys, but I got to go Nick Foles. And I know Drew Brees is Drew Brees, but I was 5 years old when he was doing that stuff. Like, I at Westlake, not, obviously NFL, but Nick Foles, I mean, I was 2 years under him, so obviously got to see him practice, got to see him, prepare for games. I mean, he was that guy. I was surprised he was ranked where he was. I mean, I think he was a 3-star coming out, but obviously he's gone on to win a Super Bowl. So somebody missed an eval there, but he was big arm, huge kid. We used to just I was on the scout team with JV, and we would just stand to the side and just watch him warm up, just watching the spirals he would throw. It was like I don't know, it was like therapeutic almost to watch it. But I got to go Nick Foles. He was just he was clutch. They got close to that state title in 2006. Riley Dodge beat him out with South Lake Carroll. But he'd probably be my pick.
Yeah, that especially back then, Marcus, guys from the Austin area just didn't get a ton of respect. And I remember watching Nick Foles. I watched him several times. But the game I remember, they were playing Austin High at House Park. I remember Nick Foles just carving up Austin High.
Yeah. And
I'm just still leaving there thinking what, am I missing something? Why does he not have more offers? Why is he not rated higher? To Hank's point, I never got the lack of respect or whatever you want to call it for Nick Foles. It was only a matter of time, I think, before he took the leap that he did.
Yeah. That Austin High game too. Sorry, Marcus, if you guys want to say.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
I think they lost that game, and I don't think I know what game you're talking about, Marcus.
See, this is why I was trying to give my answer, because I knew this was coming.
Yeah.
You didn't get Nick Foles quick enough. Matthew was going to find it. That's the only reason I was trying to interrupt you, Hank. So
you're good. No, that I just wanted to give a shout out to Austin High. I mean, there was a streak there. Bowie too. They had some guys Austin High. That I think it was 2007, that game we're talking about. Maybe 2006 at House Park, one of those years. That Austin High team, maybe one of the most athletic teams I've ever seen in my life. High school teams, I don't remember any of their names. Sorry, but they had D1 guys, and I'm pretty sure Austin High won that game in House Park. It was a back and forth game, but obviously Austin High's been struggling kind of ever since. But there were some good battles there with Austin High for a few years when Nick Foles was there.
See, we're taking something as wholesome as Hank talking about his alma mater, and Matthew's got to turn it into something with the Eagles. So I knew I was stepping into that bear trap. All right, let's go ahead and move on, get to some more questions. Jason asked an interesting one, said, in your opinion, who will be more scrutinized this season? Arch, Sark, or Will Muschamp? Any other want to take a stab at that? Well, I think probably Marcus, Will Muschamp is a distant third.
Agreed.
List. Between Sark and Arch, I mean, I feel like it probably should be Sark, but maybe from a national standpoint, the spotlight on Arch is just so white hot. I mean, I think if the offense falters, I think everybody's gonna turn their focus on him first.
Yeah,
I don't know, I just feel
No, I think you're right. I mean, the everything tends to gravitate to him. He's going to get, still all the comparisons to his uncles, especially with the games that are going to be played, right, with Ole Miss and Tennessee. There's going to be the obvious comparisons. And then I think it just kind of boils down to, depending on how certain games develop, and or what unfolds, then some of the ire goes more towards Sark. But I would say they kind of start on a somewhat level heading, but it's just, I mean, it's hard having that last name and not expecting that level of criticism to go Arch's way, or just the overall kind of eyeballs, because it's no different than kind of the topic we opened up describing to some degree is just that name is going to drive clicks. I mean, I think I saw, Hank, it might have even been your question where there's different folks that are now reposting him just saying one line about Georgia or, about the running back on his cousin's team, right? Yeah. That's committed to Georgia or Tennessee, wherever he is. That lit up social media. And I mean, he didn't give some in-depth analysis. He was just the guy's yoked and he's pretty good. That was it. And it's it's made all the rounds. So
I almost wonder how, if any, how much more people are going to be hesitant to maybe scrutinize Arch early on, even, if he struggles or, because, you go back to last October, is Arch Manning the biggest flop in the history of college football, whatever the dumb story was. I wonder if people are going to say, hey, let's pump the brakes. And maybe that does shift the light more onto Sark, and someone made a good point, or, I thought it was a pretty good point on Texas football message boards about, Sark talks about moving on from PK last year to let Will Muschamp take on the defense, kind of as the head coach of the defense, so he can focus on the offense and not have to make those in-game adjustments or put so much attention on the defense in-game. So now he's got that freed up now to focus on the offense. I'm almost wondering, if we do see some sluggish offense and, kind of maybe stumble out the gate a little bit, does it kind of focus more in on Sark? So I'm almost thinking maybe Sark gets a little bit more spotlight this year than Arch, just because of what we saw it kind of turn into last year and Arch having the back half of the season he did.
Well, let's go with that for a second, because Marcus, my question is, and last year there were several things that I think were very fair to criticize Sark for, or get on Sark for. I think one of them was, and there's a lot of factors in why, but I just feel like it took him too long to figure out, when calling a game and putting together an opening script, what gets Arch into a rhythm, what gets him comfortable. And granted, look, Arch struggled, on that, that could have been part of it, because I actually thought Sark's opening script for the Ohio State game, I thought the opening script was actually good, just Arch missed some of those throws. But that's my thing, Marcus. I think has Sark gotten far enough along with Arch that he can put together not just an opening script, but a call sheet throughout a game and be really good situationally, knowing, hey, if I call such and such concept for Arch, no question he's going to be able to execute it. I just think that there's got to be more synergy there between Sark and Arch.
Well, I mean, I think that's fair, to question. And I mean, I think if we're looking at it, it's probably a big part of why they're ranked the way that they are, right? By all accounts, this team is more talented than the one last year. But I think when you look at the schedule and when you look at the way that the season started, a lot of people, or at least, a lot of voters, and I would even, suggest that a number of our fans are as well, as most people are kind of in wait and see mode. And once we get, not only a glimpse of Texas State, but, more so, week 2, when Ohio State comes to town, that's when people will kind of then cast their ballots, if you will. So, I know we've talked a lot about it. I've never really had an issue of him being the play caller. I think we've talked about sometimes wishing the sequencing was better and that kind of thing. And then to your point, just the time it sometimes takes to figure out what the best approach would be to have, Arch being the most comfortable. Yeah. Again, I mean, when you're the highest, paid state employee, a lot of that criticism is going to come your way, right, wrong, or indifferent. And so I think, the proof will be in the pudding, here soon enough, and we'll kind of get to see where it all shakes out. But, I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic, if you will, just in that it just seems like he feels a bit more comfortable to this point than at least what my observations would have lent to, if I'm trying to make a one-to-one comparison from today to this time last year.
Yeah, Hank, I think going back to your point, for Sark, I think it's more of a deal where you look at all the changes he made in the offseason. You mentioned you bring in Will Muschamp so you could have more say over the offense. I'm not saying it's got to be the highest scoring or anything like that, but this offense, for all the changes Sark made, it better be a lot more disciplined than the offense was last year, and it better be a lot better executing situational football than it was last year. So basically, it needs to be more cleaned up and it needs to be more buttoned up than last year's group. To me, there's no excuse for those two things. Those two things should be markedly better than they were last year.
Yeah, and especially when you have experience training on the offensive line. I know there's new guys, but you have veteran guys like Melvin Siani, who's played a lot of football. Lawrence Seymour, assuming he, gets back and gets that left guard spot. He's played a lot of football, and the rest of the guys that are coming back. You would expect that with a veteran quarterback, that you are playing more buttoned up, you're playing more disciplined football. And I mean, I go back to asking Sark at SEC Media Days about the penalties and how they've really put an emphasis on, team consequences for penalties, because in the game, it affects the whole team. It doesn't affect just one person. And it sounds like, based off, the feedback or what we've heard from the scrimmages, that's really is starting to show. It's cleaned up. They're not making those kind of boneheaded mistakes. There's differences, and obviously pre-snap and in game, or in throughout the course of the play. But I think that will come. I think we'll see a more disciplined team just in the fact that you have a veteran quarterback returning. They've added elite personnel around him. It's a different personnel group. They have more experience, and they've really put an emphasis on it this offseason. I think we'll see a more polished product.
I do take some solace in the fact that coming off of a pretty up and down, quite frankly, rough at times scrimmages for Arch and the offense, that at least Monday and Tuesday, Arch might have had his two best practices of the preseason to start this week. So maybe for that, the offense as a whole, Saturday was the wake-up call that they needed. We'll see how it all plays out in 10 days. We got a super chat. Brad's got a super chat. Thank you so much, Brad, for the super chat. Marcus, I'll throw this one to you. So what's y'all's opinion? And I don't know, Marcus, if you heard DJ on Coffee and Football the other morning, but so what's y'all's opinion on Derek Johnson's take from Coffee and Football? Tyler Atkinson, Rocky Cummings, and Kosi Okpala will be the best linebackers in college. Obviously, DJ wasn't talking about this year, but he said at some point in the next few years, he believes this will be the best group of linebackers in the country. Now, obviously, in the portal era, how far down the road can you really look in terms of keeping everybody in the program? But Marcus, to me, the strides Kosi Okpala's made and the impact that he's made in camp, like that to me has significantly raised the ceiling of that group as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've talked before about, my affinity for DJ. He's a big part of why I wanted to come to Texas. So, God forbid me to, even like question whether or not he's qualified, right? Like if he has his opinion on it, he has his opinion on it. When I was listening to him talk about it, I thought initially where he was going was that this would be the best linebacker class that we've had. And even as a guy that came in, with Aaron Harris, that was an All-American, and Brian Robinson, we know what he went on to become, Mike Williams and Garnett Smith. Our class was 5 guys. I think that would be a fair assessment, just based on at least what we've heard to this point of how these guys have kind of come in right away and made some impact. And then to your point, it's kind of hard for me to project that far down the line, as well as I just do not know what these other linebacker rooms across the country have kind of waiting in the wings that, would be able to match it. But look, if DJ thinks it, I'm all here for it. From his lips to God's ears. I know he's worked with, some of the guys or been around, some of them at different points in time. So if anybody's kind of qualified to call their shot, it's him. And I just hope that it comes true.
I know, Hank, from everything we've heard, internally, I mean, his staff feels like they hit home runs with all 3 of those guys. Yeah. Like they like the future of all 3 of those guys. My question, though, and I think Cisco Diaz mentioned it, said I want Atkinson to live up to the hype. Tyler Atkinson, I'm not saying Tyler Atkinson is the one I worry about, but I do wonder from a perception standpoint, like what are fair expectations for him? Like to think that, going back to DJ, like to think that he's going to have the same kind of impact that Derek Johnson did as a true freshman, that's not fair to Tyler Atkinson or anyone. So I don't know really what to expect from Tyler Atkinson right out of the gate. I just hope if Kosi Okpala is the first one in that group to get significant snaps, to get high leverage snaps, which wouldn't be a shocker at this point, I just don't think that's any reason to get down on Tyler Atkinson. I just think that speaks to the kind of camp and what Kosi Okpala has done since he got to Texas in January.
Yeah. And Hank, when you go to answer this, just to Jeff's point of the hype, I have had or seen people try to convince me that Atkinson is going to be better than Derek Johnson, like in terms of what their expectations are, right? So, just when you're talking about hype, like love him, think the kid is extremely talented. Don't put that on him. Let him go be the best version of him that he can be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the best thing for Tyler Atkinson and for all these freshman linebackers is, soak up as much as you can from a guy like Raheem Biles this season, a guy like Justin Cryer, who we got to speak with on Tuesday, who is phenomenal to hear from. I to be honest, I had talked to his dad a little bit for an interview I did on TF. I hadn't really ever heard from Justin Cryer, and he brings that really veteran aspect to it. But I think what you would want from him this season is to grow into a rotational player. I don't think you would want to see all these guys too often, because I think that would mean you either have an injury with your starting guys, or they just didn't pan out and they weren't working out, and now you have to rely on true freshmen to to kind of to fill those holes, which you don't really want to do, especially over the course of the schedule they have and just the length of the seasons nowadays with the 12-team playoff. So I think Atkinson, it's hard to live up to the billing that you get with these kids nowadays. He's I think the number 2 linebacker in the country, a 5-star player. You're expected to come in and be the next best thing, but you do have to remember there is development there. Like you mentioned, Jeff, like Texas feels like they hit on all these guys. Mm-hmm. Certainly Kosi Okpala, who seems like he's ahead of schedule. Rocky Cummings, who was kind of a diamond in the rough. They got to flip from Cal late, and then Atkinson is your marquee guy. I think they're in a good spot, but I think the best thing for them this season is to try to soak up as much as they can from Biles, Cryer, Spence, and really kind of embrace that opportunity to learn.
Marcus, I really hope the people saying that really took a good long look at DJ's resume. If they didn't watch DJ play much at Texas or don't remember it, even if you include Tommy Nobis or Johnny Johnson, go down the list. Derek Johnson may be the greatest defensive player in the history of this program. Like there's debate to be had. He's in the College Football Hall of Fame for a reason.
And I hear people, they extol Atkinson's virtues, right? He's a freak. He's a beast. Like DJ was that before you ever knew of Tyler Atkinson, right? Like likely that, pretty close to the time the kid was being born. It just, social media didn't exist and the rankings weren't, the way that they are now. But, and again, I understand that I played with them, I'm biased to that extent, but like seeing it up close and personal every day, it was different. And so he was one of those guys that forced his way onto the field in a manner that, and quite frankly, I just haven't seen, right? Like we ran a specific style of defense. Jeff, you know this, like Bull Reese loved to mug his linebackers. And at the end of the day, like they found a way to get him on the field because he was that dynamic that early. And so, I tried to kind of caution people a bit against some of, putting those kind of expectations on Atkinson because the game has changed and you do just kind of have to learn, some elements of it. And DJ truly had just a knack for some of these things that you can't teach, that can't be learned. And so, listen, I think Tyler Atkinson has an opportunity to be a great player. By all accounts, he's doing everything that they're asking him to. Just give the young man a little bit of time.
No doubt. All right, let's go ahead and get to we got a couple super chats we need to get to, but right now I need to thank a couple more sponsors here on the Wednesday night live stream. Let's give a shout out to Von Lane. Texas OU week just got a whole lot easier. Von Lane's bringing back its Dallas to Oklahoma City road starting September 8th with multiple departures every single day. Riders have been asking for this one, and now it's back. You can book it today. Think about what it takes to fly that route. You're paying for your ticket, then you're paying for a seat assignment, check bag. You're standing in that TSA line, just hoping you make your gate. Von Lane's the opposite of all of that. Flat rate, $129 one way. No extra fees for anything. You board at a beautiful hotel terminal in minutes, settle into one of 22 oversized leather seats, ride with Starlink, Wi-Fi, complimentary snacks, drinks, and hot towel service the whole way. And if you're driving, that's 3+ hours of your day that are just gone on Von Lane. That's 3 hours of getting work done, watching film, or just relaxing before you get there. Von Lane connects Austin, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Fort Worth, Plano, the Woodlands, Oklahoma City, Nashville, Memphis, and Atlanta. Book at vonlane.com or enter the code OTF26. That's OTF26 at checkout for $20 off your first ride. Von Lane, a private jet on wheels. Thank you to Von Lane, and thank you to Ethos for sponsoring this edition of On Texas Football. Life insurance is one of those things nobody really enjoys thinking about, but once you got a family, it becomes a whole different conversation. It's less about thinking about the worst case scenario and more about making sure your family has financial security if something ever happens to you. That's where Ethos comes in. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy, and it's 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in as little as 10 minutes, and there's no medical exam. You just answer a few health questions online. That's all you got to do. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. Take 10 minutes to get covered today with life insurance through Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/ontexas. Again, that's ETHOS.com/ontexas for your free quote. Application times may vary. Rates may vary. Again, that's ethos.com/ontexas for your free quote today. All right. Thank you to Ethos and Vaughn Lane. Let's go ahead and get to a couple more of these super chats. Thank you guys that have chimed in with super chat so far. Justin with the super chat said, I need y'all to give us 3 goals for the offense and 3 goals for the defense this season. And was Matt criticized as much as Sark at this point in his tenure? Great stuff, fellas. Boy, I think Marcus, not just in terms of years, but if you look at the trajectory, I feel like Sark's 2025 was a lot like Mac's 2003, where, you have a 10-win regular season, going back to 03. You have a 10-win regular season. You assume you're going to a BCS game, and then Oklahoma ends up losing a Big 12 championship. You go to the Holiday Bowl, lose a forgettable Holiday Bowl to Washington State. And then, as you called it, Marcus, is it the worst or the longest offseason of your time at Texas was 2004?
Yes, both.
Because Greg Robinson and Dick Tomey come in, bring in the not our standards. It's similar to Sark making the changes that he made. And yes, like Mac, is it fair to say, Marcus, that Mac might have been criticized at that point? It feels like it to me. Mac was criticized more pre-national championship than Sark has to this point.
I mean, certainly I didn't view it through the same lens at the time, but to your point, it felt the same, I think, for us. I mean, gosh, by 03, I don't know how many 10-win, seasons we were on a streak of at that point, but I vividly remember us getting booed, like in our own stadium at different points in time, right? And you could just see at times how frustrating it was for him, that we weren't fully over the hump and some of the OU issues that we had early on in that time period. So, I think that's pretty fair, man. I think now it's different, but imagine if like social media was what it is now, in the year, to your point in 03, when we ended up losing to Washington State. Like at least they closed out on a high note and beat Michigan. But like, can you imagine what the Twitter sphere and the different podcasts and YouTube channels would be, had that existed in, following the 03 season? I don't think it would have been pretty.
There was a portion of the fan base, and you know who you are. They would have been fine with Texas making a coaching change after 2003. Mm-hmm. And like, I don't think it would have happened, but there was that, oh man, Marcus. And this is why I'm glad you guys didn't have social media. Like I've tried to talk to Rod about the Chris Sims, Major Applewhite dynamic and what that was like on the outside. Well, Rod didn't really have perspective on it because obviously it's pre-social media. The internet's still really kind of in its infancy, like so insulated by everything. You don't really know what's going on outside. There was that weird, like Steve Spurrier to Texas rumor. I think Jimmy Sexton had started floating. Like it was that 03 to the end of the 03 regular season to the start of the 04 season was just a weird time. And that's why I look at, we were talking last night, I think about when's the last time Texas had a non-conference game that was as must win as this Ohio State game? And we talk about the Ohio State game in 05, but I can't forget how big that Arkansas game was, Marcus, in 04 when you guys went up to Fayetteville, because you're coming off the Holiday Bowl loss. You lost to Arkansas the year before. Like you needed that one really, really bad.
Yeah, and it was a tough game, right? Like we didn't pull it out till the end. So, you're right, Jeff. I think it's interesting to look back on it and wonder, if the coverage was similar, how some of those things would pan out. To Justin's point, I mean, man, I just, for all 6 of my goals, I just want them to cut like the penalties in half. Like if they can cut the penalties in half, that alone I think is good for an extra win. So that's what I'm gonna stick with. Hank, I'm not sure where you would go on those.
Yeah, I mean, you have to go with penalties for sure. I mean, that's I think Sark talks about turnover margin a lot as well. I think if this defense, imagine if this defense starts forcing some non-offensive touchdowns and just to supplement what this offense can probably do once they get into rhythm. I think that would be a huge deal. I think one thing, and got brought up yesterday talking to Arch, think if he could boost his completion percentage, and and obviously that goes into a little bit to guys actually catching the football too, but he was 81st in the country last season in completion percentage. If he can get that number up, that means good things are happening, and Cam Coleman and Ryan Wingo are probably catching the football downfield and making plays happen. Emmett Mosley too. So that's probably where I would go. I'm trying to give a full 6, but penalties, turnover margin, completion percentage, I think those are all obviously red zone. We can't have a discussion without converting in the red zone. So
I don't know if I can give a full 6, but just to add on to what you said there, Hank, I've been big on, man, situation. This goes into the red zone. Situational football's got to be better. Like, you got to be better on third down. You got to be better 2 minute and a half, coming off your own goal line, like taking advantage of field position, not giving away field position, just across the board, just to see a product that's more buttoned up. I mean, I'm not saying it's ever okay to lose a game at Texas, because we know that it's not, but like, I can almost stomach a loss more if you're buttoned up and playing clean while you're doing it, and the other team's just better than you. It's really hard to stomach a loss when you're like, well, you committed 13 penalties and kind of kicked the ball around all over the place, and you were 1 for 10 on third down or whatever. It's just got to be cleaner. And my goal for the Texas defense, Marcus, again, given the high risk, high reward nature of a Will Muschamp defense, my goal for them would be you gotta be at the very least in the top quarter of the SEC in takeaways. Like, you got to be taking the ball away. As aggressive as Will Muschamp is going to be, you got to have the payoff, and you got to force turnovers.
And it's kind of to Hank's point as well about, creating some non-offensive, touchdowns. But I know at one point there was a show earlier in the offseason, Jeff, that we had done, and we were doing some bold predictions, and mine on whatever show it was, I can't remember which, if it was with me, you, and CJ, or if it was one that was on with Rod maybe. And it was that, this Texas team would, under Muschamp, break whatever the turnover takeaway record is, rather. And Jerry and I were looking at it, one morning before coffee and football. The 09 defense had 25 interceptions. 02, my freshman year, the defense had 22 interceptions. And then when you add in fumble recoveries and then, turnovers on down, right, you get a fourth down stop. That would be kind of whatever that number ends up being. If you can do that, it certainly gives, your offense more opportunities, more bites at the apple. And so I think, just this whole concept of, Muschamp bringing in a very aggressive style of defense, one that, sometimes it may leave you a bit exposed, but in the aggregate, if we look up and you can really say, like, one of the descriptions of this defense was that it just created a lot of chaos for opposing offenses, then I think that'll certainly be a good sign for the season.
All right, Justin, thank you for the super chat. We got one more to get to, but I want to get to a couple of news items real quick. I've had a lot of comments tonight in the chat about Cole Hudson. As of right now, he's good to go. Now, could Greg Sankey clarify something and then suddenly it's against the rules that the SEC has laid out? There's always you can't completely rule it out. There's always a chance of that happening. But as of right now, Cole Hudson is good to go. And with Jordan Johnson-Rebel, he has been getting some time at linebacker. CJ Vogel's mentioned that. I think Bobby might have mentioned it too over on TexasFootball.com. But, Hank, that's not anything new. He got some time there during the spring. And at this point, and I think somebody mentioned it in the chat too, it just goes to show kind of how selfless he is. I have Freshwater Cage here with us. Y'all talked about JJR switch to linebacker. Seems to be a selfless teammate. Hope the best for him in the new role. It's kind of when we talked about this, Hank, when we talked about Ty Anthony Smith's dismissal and what the impact would be, he and Jonathan Cunningham are the two guys like, well, they've got time at linebacker. So if you wanted to put somebody there for depth purposes, those would be the two most relatively seamless position conversions you can make.
Yeah, absolutely. Jordan Johnson-Rebel, you can't say enough about him. It's almost kind of like a Ryan Niblick comp in terms of, like, he's just going to do whatever's best for the team, which you have to respect. But they're not going to put Jordan Johnson-Rebel in there to go start at middle linebacker. I mean, I think he's a guy that knows the defense. He's a really sound tackler. He's not going to put you in bad situations. He's going to be where he needs to be. But yeah, just to have an extra body in there just to help with the depth, especially, if he's, getting run at third team, fourth team safety, which I don't know exactly the order where he is right now. but to get him more involved, I think is big. But I think the biggest thing is just the selflessness of being willing to do that. Same with Deuce Cunningham. In the past, I'm not saying Deuce Cunningham's moved to linebacker now, but in the past when he's done that.
Right. All right. Let's go ahead and get to a couple of super chats here. Spence GPT2 has a super chat. Thank you, Spence. Said, what dates are y'all doing Friday events at Shields versus the co-op? I work in Cedar Park. We'll make some of those events. TBD, Spence, on our lives at Shields. We will be doing some of those. We will have live remotes at the Shields in Cedar Park, but it's TBD on those. As of right now, that 3:00 Friday live stream for home games will still be at the co-op. So as of right now, that's still good to go. Could it change? Maybe. I don't know. But as far as we know right now, that's what we're rolling with. So we'll keep you up to date, Spence, not just here on the channel, but over on the website, our social media platforms as well, keeping you updated on where we'll be when we're doing remotes and whatnot. But yes, we will be out and about. So thank you, Spence, for the super chat. Brad with another super chat said, I see people saying Tennessee is a game to worry about. True freshman quarterback in his first big game. I just don't see it unless you tell me it's a trap game. Marcus, this game, and I'm only bringing this to you because I know you said a few times now you're going to Knoxville. When the schedule came out, nothing disappointed me more than the fact that this is an 11 a.m. kickoff. Like, it's good for Texas that you don't have to deal with the Tennessee crowd at night. But I thought, man, Texas going to Neyland Stadium, like, I wanted that game to be at night, and still disappointed that it's not. It's going to be a hell of a trip for Longhorn fans going to Knoxville.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know. Like, I just don't know enough at this point about Faison and Brandon to tell you whether that's going to be something to worry about or not. So, yeah, it's hard for me to say going to Tennessee is a trap game because I just have more respect for the program and the environment than that. But yeah, it's completely wait and see for me based on what we see from Faison Brandon these first few games.
Right. And to your point, after a first few, he gets the first few games out there, and granted, they're probably not playing much of anyone non-con. I need to go back and take a look, but I don't suspect they have any, crazy matchups. So he'll at least have some film. And so I think it's twofold for me. I trust, whatever Will Muschamp is going to choose to dial up against the true freshman quarterback. And then maybe even more so on the other side of the ball for Tennessee. I know we've talked about it a few times on, some different shows, but last I heard, Tennessee was down 3 defensive starters. For as much as we've talked about depth and, some guys getting, moved around, even at the linebacker position, we're not down 3 defensive starters, I'll tell you that much. And so, I don't really see how that's and I think the majority of them are in the secondary, or at least 2 of them. So I don't really see how that's a great proposition against an offense that has, a considerable amount of firepower. So to that end, I think Texas should pull it out. And I don't really see it as a trap game either, because you have enough coaches on the staff that are well steeped in the SEC, whether it's Muschamp, Jabbar Jalouk, you got Mark Stoops that's, on staff. You got even one of the analysts that came from Florida. So there's enough guys around that know the importance of a game like that, that know, the challenges of traveling anywhere in the SEC period. So I don't think that's one they'll be overlooking.
No, Hank, I know you did some digging and got some intel on that Tennessee quarterback battle a few weeks ago before it was announced. I think that this week that Josh Heupel made that announcement that they're going with Faison Brandon. Was that a close battle with he and McIntyre, or based on what you learned, did he pull away at some point?
Yeah, I think it was close for a period. McIntyre had been in the program for a year. He's a coach's son, so obviously had the kind of that steady hand. But I think Faison Brandon's probably just, he was ranked a top 10 or top 20 recruit, I believe. But I think he flashed more in camp. He's got a good arm. He's got really good command. He can run what they want to do. And, I think if there's one thing, you maybe you're nervous about in that setting is Texas, obviously on the road, that's a whole nother environment. But the fact that the kind of offense Josh Heupel runs, kind of that veer and shoot, they're going to move fast to where Faison Brandon doesn't really have to think as much. I feel like so if you can kind of get on the defense on their heels and get some momentum, get that crowd into it, I think that's where you start to get concerned a little bit. But it's not going to be a situation that Texas isn't fully prepared for or is overlooking or looking ahead to OU or anything down the line. Like that's a game that's going to be circled and obviously is going to have. We talked about the Arch spotlight this season. I mean, that Arch Manning going to Neyland Stadium, like that's going to be a storyline all week. I'm sure we'll hear from Peyton Manning and all that kind of people throughout the week.
I was going to say that's one of those games where you certainly don't want to be, a person at home watching it and playing a drinking game anytime there's a Peyton Manning reference or flash to him in the crowd, right? Because
exactly.
you may have to go to a hospital after that.
Marcus, to your point about coaches familiar with the environment, but you talk about coaches being familiar with coaches. Somebody mentioned in the chat that Josh Heupel's familiar with Texas, which obviously he is from his time at Oklahoma as a player and a coach. Jim Knowles is on that sideline calling defense for Tennessee, Marcus. That's not an off week for Sark, because whether it's Oklahoma State or Ohio State, Sark is run into the brick wall that has been the Jim Knowles defense.
Yeah, but again, you're not wrong. I just think my other thought to that is, again, you're down some starters that I'm sure he would love to have. And sometimes, what I've seen Jim Knowles defenses, at least over the years, is they tend to be better, after they've been in for a couple of years and he has some older guys, at his disposal. I just don't know, that early in the season. And I think I saw someone in the chat even mention they played Georgia Tech before us. So it's not like, they have a true cakewalk, so to speak, that, they can, just full on divert all their attention to Texas. I just wonder if they'll be able to execute his defense that early in the season to the level, that he, typically expects of his defenses.
And that is in Atlanta. That's a home game for Georgia Tech. That's not a neutral site game.
They got Arian Carter's suspension reduced to 1 game for should be 0 games. I'm very team Arian Carter here.
Yeah,
the linebacker for Tennessee.
Yeah,
took a plane ticket for $400 something while we got people coming back to play college football after NFL training camps. But makes sense. It makes total sense. But it is 1 game, so he'll be back for that Georgia Tech game for them. So that's important for their. Because you imagine they're going to be 3-0 against Texas. That's going to be a top 25 game for sure.
Just in case you need it, Tennessee is Furman, Georgia Tech, Kennesaw State before Texas comes to town. So there it is. And that, gentlemen, is going to do it for the Wednesday night live stream here at On Texas Football. Chat was lively. Thank you guys for keeping it lively. Thank you for the super chats as always. Hank, thank you for filling in. Marcus, thank both of you guys for the time, the knowledge, the expertise. As always, big thank you to Matthew behind the scenes, producing it, doing the great job that he does, the MVP of On Texas Football. Thank you to our sponsors tonight, Prize Picks, Advanced Pain Care, Shields, Von Lane, and Ethos for sponsoring the Wednesday night live stream. If you're not a member over at OnTexasFootball.com, we've mentioned the site several times tonight. Now is the time to get over there, check out everything we've got going on. $3 for your first 3 months of access for new members on the website. If it's happening on the 40 acres, we are talking about it over at OnTexasFootball.com. And again, new members, take advantage of our limited time offer. It will not last forever. $3 for your first 3 months of access at OnTexasFootball.com. And make sure you hit that like button. Make sure that you're subscribed to the On Texas Football YouTube channel. If you're not already, join the more than 300,000 Longhorn fans who have subscribed to the On Texas Football YouTube channel. Make sure you got your notifications set. That way, when we drop a new video or go live, you're not going to miss any of our Longhorn coverage or breaking news. Thanks again, everybody, for your participation tonight. If you had a question, comment, anything we didn't get to, make sure you direct it to the guys bright and early tomorrow on Coffee and Football. So, for Hank, for Marcus, for Matthew, for the entire On Texas Football staff, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And until next time, welcome.
Welcome.
I'm not hashtag for Sam.